Welcome back. Last session, we went into the various tools that help with adding design and decorative elements into your world, including theming, decorations, and tile placement. Today, we'll go a bit deeper into some of the more functional and interactable components of design mode using devices to add a few things for our players to play within our world. Believe it or not, we already have a few devices set up in our world. When we first created the world, we saw a jump ring device to the left and the right of our world, as well as a spring device. Let's try clicking on the spring device next to pink bean. Clicking on this reveals a few options specific to this device: spring settings and tween settings. For our spring settings, we can see that we have the option to adjust our jump power. Currently, it's at 1.0, but let's increase this to something more like 2.0. When we jump onto the platform now, it springs us up so high that it takes us off screen. We can also set our platform to move around and make it harder to jump onto the spring device. Underneath the jump power we adjusted earlier, we can see tween settings. The word tween in game development and animation generally means a transition between two states. If we click on the Add Movement button, a semi-transparent copy of our spring appears. If we click on our main spring device, notice that the dotted line appears connecting the two. Our spring will then tween between the current position to the position of the semi-transparent copy. Under movement settings, we have the option to set this to repeat, to play once, as well as settings to increase the movement speed. Let's give it a play and see what happens. Notice that our platform now loops between the initial position and the position of the transparent copy. There are actually two other devices with the exact same settings as the spring device: the jump ring and the ball. If we click on the jump ring already in our scene, we can see that the settings are exactly the same, which means the behavior of this device will be exactly the same as the spring. If we place the ball and take a look at its settings, we can see the same is true for our ball device as well. The other types of devices are climbable devices, and as you can guess, both do pretty much the same thing. Let's place both the ladder and the rope into our environment and take a look at their settings. As we compare the two, notice that both have the ladder settings and tween settings. We've already seen tween settings when taking a look at our spring type devices, so we know that we can also have the ladder and the rope move in a similar way that we set up in the spring. The only new setting that we see here is the ladder setting, and this simply allows us to change the visual look of the ladder or the rope. As I cycle through these different ladder types, we can see the visual change according to the ladder type we've selected. Similarly, if we cycle through the rope types, we can see the rope's visual change according to the type we select as well. Let's press play and see how they work. As I walk over to the ladder and jump onto it, as expected, you can see that my character latches on and begins to climb the ladder. However, if I jump off and try to climb the rope, it's too short. My character can't seem to jump high enough to reach it. We actually have a unique transform setting unique to the ladder to adjust just that. Let's exit play and take a look at our rope. If we click on the rope to bring up the settings wheel, we can click on the orange transform button and see that in addition to the rotation and scale handles that we've already seen in previous episodes, we can also see a handle to adjust the length. Let's click and drag this handle to bring it down just a bit so that our character can reach the rope. Perfect! Let's press play again and double check that we can reach it. Awesome! We can see that our character can now reach the rope and climb it just the same as the ladder next to it. The next type of devices that we'll look at are interactive devices. These devices are meant to perform some kind of action as the player interacts with them. There are three interactable devices that I'd like to highlight. The first is the door. We'll place that into our world and take a look at its settings. By itself, it doesn't really have any functionality behind it other than to block access to the area behind the door. Let's press play and see how this works. As expected, the door prevents us from moving past it unless we have something that can deactivate it. Of course, there is a way to deactivate this door, but we'll talk about that in a moment. We of course have the tween settings as before to move the door around, but I have a different plan for this door. Let's drag this door to the bottom platform and restrict the access to the area behind it. Before players can access this section, they will need a way to deactivate this door. That's where the button comes in. Let's place the button out into the world and take a look at what it does. When we click on the button, we notice that there's only one type of setting that's available to us: button settings. Among the options, we can see the deactivate target settings by default and an add target button. This allows us to select the target for the button, and upon stepping on the button, deactivate the target that we select. If instead we choose to activate the target, then pressing the button will activate the object instead. We also have the option to set a timer for our button press by cycling the on and off setting to the duration second setting, allowing us to create a timer for players to hurry to get past the door before it activates again. Let's try adding our buddy Pink Bean as a target and see what happens when we step on the button. Select Add Target and select the Pink Bean NPC. Notice that the dotted line that gets drawn between the two objects signifying the connection between the two objects. We can press Add Target again if we want and select another object. This time perhaps the spring object behind Pink Bean. Click Add Target again and this time select the spring device. Let's leave the target setting to deactivate and keep the toggle setting to on and off. Now let's press play and see what happens. As we step on the button, we can see that the objects that we assigned as targets are toggled on and off. Returning to our button settings, let's remove our targets by clicking on the Remove Target button, and this time, let's add the door we added earlier as a target. Now, let's move the button to the top platform to make it slightly harder to reach our players, and press play. Before we press our button, let's confirm that the door is actually there. Awesome, we can see that the door is indeed blocking our path and ready to be deactivated. Now let's climb up to the button and confirm that the button deactivates the door. Cool. Now we have access to our restricted area. The final interactable, the lever, works in a similar way to the button. However, instead of stepping on the lever, the player activates the lever by pressing E on their keyboard. Let's place the lever out into our scene and see what settings are available to us. We can see the same settings as before, with the exception that we cannot set a timer for the lever. Let's place another door out, and this time at the top platform. And we'll add that door as the target. As you can see, doing so creates the dotted line we saw earlier with the button and confirms that we've made the connection. Let's drag the lever to behind the door at the bottom platform and press play. First, we'll press the button at the top to open the door at the bottom. Then, we'll head down to confirm the door has been opened. Awesome! Now, as we move close to the lever behind our door, notice that a pop-up appears above our lever asking us to press E. When we activate the lever switches on, and our door at the top should be open. Awesome! Activating our lever successfully deactivated the door. Behind this door, I want to place an item that the players can find so that they have to solve the puzzle we've just created before they can obtain this item. In the current version of MapleStory World's design mode, we have two types of items, the coin and the boost. Let's place both of these behind our door and see what they can do. As we click to see the settings, notice that we don't actually have any settings here to modify. The coin will disappear once collected, but currently doesn't do much more than that. But can be a fun passive challenge for the players to try and collect all the coins hidden throughout our map. The boost item, when collected, allows us to move faster for a short duration if we collect it, then reappear once the effect wears off. Now let's bring the world to life with NPCs. We already have two NPCs out in the world, so let's take a look at the options we have available to us. When we click on Pink Bean, we can see our NPC settings options. If we want a different NPC in our world, we can cycle through the various NPC types to change which NPC character the player sees. We can also modify the NPC name and the dialogue they show to whatever we like. Let's place the NPC device out into the world and place it right in front of our door on the upper platform to guard our coin and boost items. I want a soldier look, so let's change the NPC to NPC 4. Our guard is currently facing the wrong way, so let's flip the direction by clicking on the orange transform button, then click the flip button to flip the direction our guard is facing. Finally, we'll change the name to Keeper of the Coin. Then we'll set the dialogue to solve the puzzle in this room and you shall be rewarded. All done. Let's give it a play. Awesome. Our guard is doing a good job protecting our coin and boost items. As the final touch to our world, let's place some text into our world to give hints to our player. Let's place a text device just under the lever. We can see that we can adjust the text for this device through text settings. So let's change it to, a lever. I wonder if there's something that can open this door so I can flip it. There. That should give our players a hint that this lever is important and something in the world is hidden that can open our door. Let's give it a final play and see how everything comes together. If we head up to the top platform, we notice that our guard is protecting our coin and letting us know that there is a puzzle to solve. If we move down to the bottom, we can see a door with the lever behind it and the text hint that we placed. We'll then move back up to the top and hit our button. Moving back down to our door, we notice that it successfully disappeared and we can access the lever. Walking up to the lever, we can see the prompt to activate the lever, and when activated, the lever flips on. Finally, moving back up to the guard, we can see that the door has disappeared and we can collect the coin and the boost item. And that's everything for today. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode, creating a mini puzzle for our players. Join me in the next section, where we swap gears from the design game map to the game map and begin creating our obstacle course.